Hi, my name is Sandra White. Thank you for joining me. Who here has ever started a company? Okay, and of you with your hands raised, who has created a human resource department? Well, it looks like we need a little help. MailScript is a new mail order prescription drug company. MailScript has a lot of competition, so it's important that we get off on the right foot. Why does MailScript or any other company need a human resource department? Joseph Marticino, who wrote the Human Resource Management book, indicates that human resource management is the use of individuals to achieve organizational objectives. Q6, a website, also says human resource professionals are the lifeblood of the company because their job is to ensure that the business gets the most out of its employees. MailScript needs to build a human resource department, and within that department, they are focusing on creating roles, position descriptions, and organizational charts. The primary role of a human resource department, first they need to identify which roles are needed. So again, according to Joseph Marticino, who wrote Human Resource Management, the primary roles of a human resource department includes recruiting, staffing, performance management, development plans, compensation, employee and labor relations, safety and health, data analytics, and interrelations within the human resource department. So recruiting is where are we going to go out and get our staff? How are we going to get people to come to work for MailScripts? Staffing is then we need to be able to identify how many people we need to do our job successfully. The organization needs to determine that from a human resource standpoint and from an organizational standpoint. Somebody in the organization needs to create the compensation. So we have to create these job descriptions that say who's going to make what amount of money, what is that job ranked at, and that's the human resource team's responsibility. So those are some of the roles that are needed within the human resource department. How are they going to define the roles? So we have them established. We know what roles we need to create. And so to define the roles on who's going to do what, the team needs to gather and talk about the functions, what each role should be responsible for, and how many people they need to do that role to be successful. So when we talk about recruiting and staffing, do we need to look at it and say we want to recruit 5 new employees a month, or do we want to say we want 5 new employees a year? And based on that structure is going to help us set our determination of how many employees do we need working on recruiting. If we only need 5 a year, what does that look like in keeping somebody busy? Is that a part-time position or a shared job responsibility? What are the impacts to MailScripts if we don't have our roles defined? So if MailScript doesn't have their roles defined, there'll be no organization to the department. That then causes a trickle-down effect to the company. This will cause work to be incomplete or even cause work to be completed twice, as nobody knows whose job it is or who's doing what. So look at it as a situation of everybody sitting in an office and somebody comes in and says, hey, I need help with A, B, and C, and everybody sits there. We don't know whose job that is. So that's where it's going to be no work's getting done, or everybody jumps in and says, yeah, I can do that. And then you have the same work being done, completed 3 or 4 times. So once MailScript has their roles identified and defined, they can begin hiring people to do the tasks. So that leads us into creating the position descriptions. So how do we create an accurate position description? Let's look at a sample position description. Position descriptions help employees know what the company's expectation of them is and what is required of them to be successful at the job. Creating position descriptions allow the hiring company to define the role and responsibilities of the job and then equate that into compensation for work done. According to the HR Daily Advisor in 2019, the the most critical components of a good job description should include heading information, summary of job description, qualifications, special demands, and job duties and responsibilities. So when we look at the sample position description, we have a heading, we have the name of the company, we have a job title, a department that it's posting for, who this individual would report to, the status of the employee, the job summary. So what are we looking at? What's the elevator speech essentially of the job? Then it lists out the essential duties and responsibilities. And then on page 2, we look at what supervisory responsibilities, if any, would be required. Qualifications. So this is going to go into your education, what is needed to do this. And then physical requirements. So those are some of the special demands, could be physical requirements, especially in a human resource position. There's not a lot of heavy lifting generally. This particular example also asks for the employee to notify if they need special accommodations, and if they do, what those accommodations are. And then it asks for the supervisor and the employee to sign the job description. If a position description is not accurate, the company and employee could be in a tight spot. Imagine being hired for a job based on a set of functions that were shared with you, and then after you start the job, several of the functions were not on the job description that you're now being asked to complete. This could be a problem if you do not have the skills to perform the tasks or even do not have the physical capabilities. So in this sample job description, it states you must be able to lift and or move up to 25 pounds. If you have the inability to do such a thing and then later that was asked of you, you could see how we would get into a pickle on that. So now MailScript has their roles defined and their job descriptions ready. They can begin creating the organizational chart. So the first question is, what is an organizational chart? A website called Uprise stated in 2018 that an organizational chart displays the internal structure or hierarchy within the organization. It's a graphical representation of different relationships amongst functions, departments, teams, as well as individuals. Let's look at a sample org chart to help us understand how to create and show the importance of it. So in this organizational chart, it's pretty minute. It's not very detailed. You can drill down a lot further, but to start off with a company, it would be okay to start with a higher level organizational chart. The easiest place I find to start is at the top. 9 times out of 10, you know who your top is. So that's an easy one to fill out and plug it in. And then you go into your department. Who's the manager of that department? What does it look like? These blue areas then are trickling down. So as you see, the manager is working in the imaging mailing department, and that manager has a direct report back up to the director of the policyholder services. The below the manager is the reporting structure that goes to the manager. In this example, you have a claims team or department, an imaging team or department, mail team or department, analyst coordinator mail team or department. What that looks like is who all of these people below the claims are working on this, and their structure goes up through the manager back up to the division, the director level. The organizational chart can also be used to show how many employees are under which leadership and could show where there are heavy and light areas. So take, for example, the claims team and the analyst coordinators. What it looks like the claims team has maybe more work to do, and that's why there's 7 people or 5 people, 6 people over the 2 people of the analyst coordinators. You can use an organizational chart to try to determine if there's any bottlenecks. Is there a spot in our company where all the work is getting backloaded because maybe it's not a true representation? Maybe the analyst coordinators actually have a lot more work to do, but there's not enough of them to get it done. You can also look at it to determine if you see employees moving from space to space. So if people move from the imaging team to the claims team, are the people on the imaging team being replaced? Or is it just a need that the imaging team work is getting less and the claims team work is getting more? And so we learn how to staff within that. If a company does not have an organizational chart, it can cause hierarchical confusion along with general confusion on where people work in the company. So one thing we didn't touch on is that you can also use this to learn how to identify where somebody is in the organization. So if we needed to find Jennifer, we could say, okay, Jennifer works here in claims, and she reports to whomever this individual is. And what does that look like? And if the claims team had a manager or whatever, that person would be noted here too, so that we could try to figure out where people are in the company. In conclusion, the human resource team has several responsibilities, and the success of the department is the success of the company. They must make sure that the department has their own roles and functions defined, create organizational charts and position descriptions to help the company be successful. Are there any questions? Thank you for joining me, and have a great night.